Hello, and welcome back for another installment in our Courtroom Confidential Conversation series. For this episode, please join me in welcoming Scott McIntyre from the wildly popular YouTube channel Recovery Addict. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Joshua. It's great to be here.
Oh, thank you
Well,
so much for doing this. You are an absolute gentleman and you are a very forgiving and understanding person. And I usually start these interviews by saying, hey, this is great. We just met a few minutes ago. We're about to have this conversation. So I'm going to learn all this stuff about this person along with everybody watching. And this is actually the second time that we've gone through all of this because yours truly somehow messed something up. You know, I've been doing this for long enough. You would think I had figured it out by now, but we did a wonderful interview where we got to know each other for the first time. It was one of my favorite conversations about a couple of weeks ago. And then as we're starting the editing process, uh, Kaylin, who is our editor, goes, "Where's the file?" And I go, "What are you talking about? Where's the file?" And we go back and look, and out of all the archives of everything we have, it shows that we did record an episode, but it also shows that it's been deleted. And I lost my mind, and we tried to recover it, and we did not. So I sheepishly called up Scott and said, my dear good friend, if there's any possible way you could carve out some more time for us and we could recreate that magic, and you graciously agreed to do so. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
oh, not a problem. Back in the day, I lost a tape from a wedding that I was shooting,
Oh
and
my.
so I know the feeling. That's not something we can
Oh
recreate with
my.
them, though. So this is nothing.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad one. I can't if my conversation with you, I felt bad. I can only imagine the conversation you must have had to have with some folks regarding that.
Yeah. Why didn't you film us cutting the cake? Well, I did.
Oh,
So,
yikes.
but it's
Oh
cool.
my God. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm now going into this already knowing that you have kind of a fascinating story. And one of the things that you shared with me was, first of all, you come from a very large family. You are the fifth out of 10 children, right?
I'm glad you remember that because I have to do the math in my head. Well, you have to count off the people. Yeah, I'm sort of smack dab in the middle out of 10, and crazy. Love it. I wouldn't have changed it for anything, but it definitely gave me some unique experiences.
How many boys and girls?
Uh, 6 boys, 4 girls.
Wow. Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
nearly evenly split too. A pretty even smattering there. How
But now
so?
I have to count. Hang on, Stephanie, Michael, Tony, Timmy, Scott, Christina, Austin, David, Stephen, Gwen. Yeah, I think that's right. Don't ask me
um,
birthdays. That's where I really can't help you.
Share with us a little bit what that was like growing up in a huge household like that. Was it just everybody fighting for themselves, or was it just this one big party all the time?
All my siblings get along. Well, we didn't always. I mean, we like to fight as well.
Sure.
There's the regular squabbles, but we all get along, and we still do. Which is, I mean, all of our siblings and all of our in-laws. It's the best relationship ever. We're not next to each other. We're spread out all across the United States now. But when we were all in the same house, things get a little crazy, especially around dinner time. That's a lot of food, a lot of mouths to feed and clean up after, and it was everyone had chores to do, so divide up the work. Gardening was my least favorite, but it seemed to always be a couple hours on a Saturday. We're out there weeding the garden, and it was good memories now, but not pleasant during as far as the weeding goes.
It's incredible though. And you're still in touch. Do you guys ever is there ever an opportunity to have a big family reunion where you all get together?
We've got one planned for Bear Lake in Utah-Idaho border this summer. So fingers
Wow.
crossed. It's going to fall right between, like, somewhere between Corey Richard's trial and Brian Koberger's. So if it all works out, we'll be out there for that. It's gonna
Wow.
be
And
crazy.
I got to imagine, first of all, I am praying that this all involves you guys wearing matching shirts. Even if that's not true, that's how I'm going to imagine it.
It
And
does.
it does. I love it.
I got an email saying, "Oh, by the way, we're going to do photography. Think of what motif your family's going to wear." Yeah, but we're all going to. I'm not sure what color our team's been assigned, but it will be matching shirts.
And the cousins has got to be insane at this point, right? The amount of cousins and grandkids and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's wild. It's huge. It grows exponentially is what happens, you know, it
Yeah,
just with every year, suddenly it's like boom, and they have kids, and it gets wild, but, I can't even tell you that I know all their names, but I can tell you which family they're related to, and
I do not hold
and
that against you. I cannot blame you for that one. I was also thinking too, as I'm just sitting here, the Christmas card budget you must have has got to be pretty crazy to send out that many different cards and stay in touch with everyone.
I have a confession. I've never
Tell.
sent a Christmas card in my life.
Oh, oh.
It's the best solution ever. Um, we call on the phone, we talk, we send videos, we, you know, do all that, but I've never been a Christmas card person.
Oh, good for you. We are Christmas card folks, and it becomes you know, the list is ever expanding every single year, and it seems to kind of stress my wife out towards the end of the year. But um,
Let me give you a caveat to that. We didn't do Christmas cards, but growing up, we did sing Christmas carols, and we would make
oh,
cookies. My mom's Norwegian. We'd make all sorts of Norwegian cookies, and you know every type of cookie you can imagine. We're talking hundreds of dozens of cookies, and we'd go Christmas caroling, and it would take days to visit all the people and give cookies to everybody. So the whole family, all the kids, would it would take multiple vehicles, piles of cookies, and we just drive for miles and miles, and everybody we knew got Christmas cookies. So
wow,
that's sort of what we do instead of cards.
that is quite a tradition. I like that. And then you have carried on kind of that baby making ethos to your own family because you have a large tribe yourself.
We settled with half a dozen. We've got
Hmm.
6. We've got 5 boys and 1 girl,
Oh wow.
and that's all. That's all, but, they're amazing.
Where does the girl fall into it age wise?
She's the 2nd youngest, so she's just preteen right now, and, life is just amazing every day. It's new and different.
I love it. I
So,
love
it's
it.
good.
I've got 3 little ones at home, and so you give me hope in that you are still standing and kicking after 6 of them, that I'm going to be able to survive the 3 I got. So thank you for that encouragement just by being alive.
Yeah. Once you get out of the diaper phase, it gets exponentially better. And once the kids start to, you know, developing their personalities more than just, you know, their preference of food and things like that, they're amazing, amazing individuals. And I don't know where they got their smarts or their good looks, other than that wasn't from me. So that's on my wife's side, but you'll love it.
That's awesome. That's quite a blessing you've been handed. Good for you. All right. Well, that's family and kids, but you also have, I think, a very fascinating professional and educational background. What Tell us first, what kind of pursuits did you have in college? Where did you think that would bring you? But then where did it eventually land you?
Well, I went to Weber State University, which was, I think, internationally well known for being cheap.
Okay.
And that's why I made the choice. It was like basically a community college. But I went to there in Ogden, Utah, and I studied communications, electronic media. So I was thinking television broadcast, production, things like that. I loved it. I loved filming, especially sports filming. I did a ton of that for NCAA basketball. Um, I filmed everything from race cars to hot air balloon rides and everything in between. Uh, Graduating from there, and the last years of going through college, I started working in the Department of Defense in IT, and then I graduated and stayed there for, I don't know, close to 10 years, and worked my way up into the Department of with the DoD into a really fun position, top secret SCI, all the clearance, and all the
What is
fun.
that? Tell us what that means. Top secret SCI.
It's the highest level of security clearance a civilian can get, like a
Wow.
regular person without being a member of Congress on the security committee, you know, or you know the president or something. So it's a really cool designation, but really it just stands for secure compartmentalized information, which means that the data we work with is so sensitive that even we are only allowed to see part of it, like a little piece of the pie instead of the whole
Wow.
picture.
So did you feel like you don't even I I'm I know I'm getting dangerously close to start asking questions where agents are going to start knocking on my door, but I'm curious, did you have enough information to even really kind of understand what you're working on? Or is it so compartmentalized that you're like, I really don't even know what I was involved with?
Yeah, we knew which 3 and 4 letter agencies we're doing work for and where stuff resided, but
Gotcha.
that's about all I
Gotcha.
can go into.
That's all you can go into. I love that. Well, the background, tell us about the background check though. And I want to go back to the broadcasting and all of that, but this is such a fascinating part of your story to me. Uh to get top secret clearance,
Yeah.
I got a background check to work at the DA's office, and that's just be a prosecutor for a government agency. And that was really extensive. So I can only imagine what you had to go through for that.
I had to go through pretty much everything except a lie detector, which was weird. I thought they would have put a lie detector on there first, but um, in-depth interviews with somebody who knows your life better than you do, asking questions about things you can barely remember, but they have all the details on. It's the weirdest situation ever to have somebody that basically has your life as a book in front of them and asking specific questions. And what about this person 7 years ago? It's in depth. It takes between a year and 18 months, somewhere around that, to get the SCI. And once you get it, you're signed on to agree to not reveal for life. So even though I'm not there
Wow.
anymore, I can't talk about it. If I were to publish a book that talked, about certain things, I'd have to have it run through the clearance.
Incredible. Was First of all, was that nerve-wracking, that experience? I mean, I imagine you got nothing to hide, but still when you're being grilled like that by someone.
I It wasn't really nerve wracking. I had previously almost worked for the Secret Service. Like I
Wow.
went through all the process and got the job offer, and then I turned it down. Um, and I turned it down honestly because the day I went, I know, this is a funny story. Okay, first of all, I applied for the job in Salt Lake City, and I went through all the exercise, fitness tests, the background check, and the interviews, and then they sent me out to this office building that doesn't have any sign that says Secret Service anything. It's in a building, a nondescript building, like the button doesn't mean anything. You push it, you get on the floor. It's like empty. It's like a Men in Black type
I
situation.
love it.
You get
Yeah.
out there, there's no placards on the wall, and it's the Secret Service office. I went in there and got the job offer, and I told them I want to think it over. And as before I left, I went in the break room, and I think I was doing like fingerprints or something at the time. But went to the break room, and there were a bunch of other agents in there, and they were all talking, and they were talking to me and said, "Hey, are you married?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And they all laughed. I'm like, what? Why is that so funny? And they said, "You won't be for long in this job."
Wow.
And that made my decision. I decided that if it was that hard to stay married in a job that I really wanted to do, maybe I'd just have a different job. So I turned it down.
Wow. That was kind of a signal being sent your way, huh? One
Yeah.
final warning if you really want to do this. Um, I'm curious though, because you said that you started out in kind of broadcasting and sports and everything, but what I imagined you don't just kind of fall into a career at the DoD. What attracted you to that, or how did you find your way
Oh,
pursuing that?
I it was weird. First of all, I had worked first before I went to school. First, I graduated from high school, and didn't go straight to college, and ended up in a lot of temporary jobs, and finally started selling metal building components in Western United States, and doing well at it. But one time I went in for a job interview for a review for a raise, and the boss said, "Remind me, what do you get your degree in?" And I said, "I didn't have one." He said, "Then I think you're making just what you should." And that was like,
Oh, yeah.
I'd hit the ceiling, and it wasn't very high. And and so I decided to quit and go back to school, which I did, and I worked several jobs. This particular job in the DoD was actually through a friend of mine who had started a little contracting company, and he's like, "Hey, you need work. I desperately need someone who could just answer the phone, basic computer keyboard skills." I'm like, "Well, I can do that with my eyes closed." And I started there and quickly worked my way up through the other available positions and ended up in where I did.
I know you can't tell us much about anything that you did, but did you enjoy it? Was it the kind of work that you thought, I'm going to make this a career for my life?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed the people more than the work because we did. generally we monitored servers, like the health of computer servers. So before a computer crashes, it was my job to make sure people were notified that something was going wrong and it was headed in the wrong direction, and to prevent that crash. And so that part was fun. Developed some really groundbreaking stuff that's being used nationwide, and it's cool that way. But it didn't like speak to my soul like this is my mission in life to keep servers from crashing that way. But I loved broadcast. I love going to school. That's why I went to school for communications. Loved working at TV stations and being sort of in the know. The scanner running in one ear and the camera in the other hand, and I liked that fast pace, and that's what sort of pushed me in that direction.
Well, and that's kind of we'll get into it more later, but that's kind of what you're doing now. I mean, the way that you run your YouTube channel is not like my kind of patched together operation we got over here, but you've got all the electronics. Yeah, there we go. That is a TV studio right there. I feel like I can hear you saying camera one ready, go camera one, and then you just
Yeah.
flip over.
See, you could be a technical director. You've got it down. That's pretty much all that's needed. It's a lot of fun. It is a full TV studio here. I do a little live event production on the side for my business. So we do actually live stream and record events for corporations and stuff.
Oh,
So
very cool.
it,
Oh, very
it's
cool. Okay. Before we get to that though, because I do want to spend some time on that and how everything works at the YouTube channel. But eventually you move your family across the country, right?
mm.
And there's a big change coming on career wise for you. Could you kind of just walk us through that period in your life?
Yeah, my job at the Department of Defense, we transitioned from the data center where I worked to another data center, which basically I worked myself out of a job. And I knew it was coming. I knew probably 3 years in advance that I would be out of a job eventually if I did everything right. And that day just kept. It was off in the future. It was not today, so type thing. And eventually, the day did come after I'd moved, and I just thought I would pick up another job similar to what I had before. There were tons of offers, and it seemed there was, plenty of options, all the fish in the sea, and they all wanted me. And it worked out great, other than the fact that when my job went away, all the fish in the sea wanted me to move to where they were, and I wanted to stay where I was in North Carolina, and nothing would come together. And I mean, you go down to Florida or go back to Denver, up to Washington D.C., and none of those places were really appealed to me. I wanted to stay where we were. And I spent about 7 months looking for work, being picky, but looking for work and not finding anything. And during that time, we managed to spend every penny we had saved over the past 10 years, down to, I mean, just a couple dollars in the bank. And at the end of that period, still no job, no offers on the horizon. I'm thinking, okay, now we get to sell the house and move who knows where and start over. I told my wife, look, I'm not going to look for work today. I'm just going to live stream on YouTube. And she said, sure, take a break. And I did. And it was the Daryl Brooks case. And it was crazy. It was wild. I mean, that case was bizarre in so many different ways. And I loved it. And 13 people logged in and watched my live stream during that day. And I went to bed at night and lay there just looking at the ceiling, just like wide awake, buzzed because it was so much fun. And it was just talking to people and watching the court. And they had said, "Hey, you come back tomorrow?" And I did. And the next day we had 45 people. And the day after we had 450. And the fourth day
Wow.
we had 13,000. And that's when it just, the light bulb went on. And I was able to talk my wife into letting me become a YouTuber full time right then.
Wow. First of all, I love that story, but there's so many other follow-up questions I have from it. First, as a man with 6 kids, you are doing your best to provide, and as that 7 months is carrying on and you're starting to dig through that savings, I can't imagine the pressure and stress that's putting on you. Can you I don't know, give us a glimpse of what that was like during that period of your life?
It was depressing, first of all, because the jobs that were available, I mean, there were people that were saying, "Hey, I know you're out of work. I need a hand. We're digging fence posts." And that's great. I mean, digging
Yeah.
fence posts is an honorable job. And the people that do it can even make some good money. But it seemed to me that it was big, just taking a big step backward in the direction I wanted to go. And every offer that came was just wrong. It didn't feel right. And so it's depressing. It was like soul suckingly depressing. And so to be able to have that little light of hope on that first day with 13 people, that it was like, this is what I've been missing in my life. And
That's amazing. When you proposed that to your wife, hey dear, I'm not going to search for work tomorrow. I'm going to go and stream something. Was it with the idea of trying to see if that could turn into something else? Or was it just kind of like, I need some sort of escape and distraction and I want to give this a try?
it was definitely escape and distraction. I already had a lot of the equipment because of what I'd gone to school with and some previous failed businesses, to live stream. But I never thought that, hey, I could be a YouTuber. I'm going to start that today and see what happens. Um, I actually hated being in front of the camera. I still do.
Uh-huh.
I went through all my degree in college in communications, TV broadcast, never being in front of the camera, which is a requirement to sort of complete most of those classes. But this was never the plan.
Well, I think it might have been the plan, but you weren't aware of it, because I've heard many people, when your name came up several times, as we asked for suggestions for who should we interview next, and your name is one of the ones that came up many times. And it seems like as many times as it came up, it was also mentioned he's got such a great voice too. And you do have a radio voice and quality about you that I thought immediately when I first started watching your videos, oh, this guy's got a background in broadcasting. He must have been a broadcaster or a radio man for many, many years. So it's funny to me that you're saying that it was, you had avoided that until this moment.
The radio experience I have is I called into talk shows a lot as a kid, and I was envious of what they did. I took one class in college, radio broadcast, which I think I got a C in. It wasn't me. There's too much paperwork and hitting the post and timings. It was too structured for me. I liked it. It's fun equipment, but and I've never worked in broadcast before.
Interesting. Well, I think you did find your calling, even though you may have not realized it. Um, why watch a trial too? So was that something you had been doing, is watching trials? And so listeners are familiar too. The Darrell Brooks trial was the Christmas Day parade massacre, where
Yeah.
Mr. Brooks ran his SUV through an entire parade, killed several people. It was horrific, and he represented himself at trial. So it did become this kind of circus slash fiasco to watch. So very interesting trial to watch. I can understand why you might have been interested in it, but where did the idea of I'm going to stream this and talk about it come to you from? Had that been something you were a fan of?
Well, a couple things. First of all, that was what was on at the time. That was that day. That was what was available. So that was a big factor. But I have always been a fan of the law. I've loved the whole process, from how the legislature proposes bills and makes laws, how they're passed, to the effect of the bills. Growing up as a kid, I would ride my bike down to the city offices and sneak into court and watch court proceedings. And it's like drug court and traffic court, nothing major. I thought I was like doing something wrong, but really it's open to the public. I didn't realize that at the time. But I'd watch court, and that was like, hey, I get to go watch court, and I've loved that. In junior high, I started studying more how the law applied to me. I had a fun experience in a class where we were in a classroom where the windows had been broken out for some reason, and they were just been replaced with plywood. And it was wintertime, and it was freezing cold. And we're all in there just like teeth chattering in history. And I'm like, I went home and I started studying. I found out that there are certain laws and rules that state that you can't hold a classroom unless the conditions for learning are met. And one of the conditions for learning is there's a temperature range that has to be met to hold class. I printed out that law, grabbed a digital thermometer, went to class the next day and let the thermometer adjust as soon as it was calibrated right. Walked up to the teacher and gave him the law, gave him my thermometer. He read the law, looked at the thermometer and said, class dismissed, and he let us out. And I've always loved that the law is more than just something that's up there that matters to them. It applies to me. And I need to learn about it, or else I'll break myself against it. And sometimes we need to do things to change the law, so it's not taking away our freedoms and our rights.
I love that. It's absolutely true. You are not a lawyer, but I don't think a lawyer could have put it any better than you just did. So now you are day 4, and your kind of distraction has blown up. And you say by day 4, you actually turn to your wife and like, listen,
Yeah.
hold everything. I'm actually going to pursue this and see what happens with it.
Yeah. She didn't know that YouTube was something you could make money off of. So I didn't know how it worked exactly. But the closest thing I could do to demonstrate how it worked was I showed her one of Peter Tragos, the lawyer, live streams. And I'm like, look, just trust me. Just watch this for a second. You see those numbers on the side? That's somebody giving super chats. And you see that name there? That means they're a member and they're paying to watch him. And like this money, I'll get split between YouTube and the content creator. And I want to do this. And once she saw how it worked with Peter Tragos, which is obviously pie in the sky type situation, she said, "Okay, I'm up for that."
I love it. So I mean, is it serious that you were like, at that point, I'm trying this full time?
That I do believe there's a higher power involved that guided me there, and all I can say is it felt so right to do that I knew that this is something I could put my full effort into, and that did have the potential to meet my family's needs, and it did faster than it ever should have. But I think that's just a sign that it was the right thing to do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, God bless, because I think you're absolutely right. When it's what you should be doing, it does seem as though all the pieces kind of fall together. So I love hearing that story. So now, um, the 7 months of drought are over. You've started this new venture. I'm hoping eventually the money started coming in. Where though did Recovery Addict come from, and how was, because I've always wondered about that name, and I've always wondered about most people's channel names, but
Yeah, that's a fun story as well, and it has a couple parts to it. The short version is I decided to live stream the same day that I hit go live, and in YouTube world, YouTube has a 24-hour waiting period between creating an account and when you can actually go live from your computer. And I wanted to do it right then. I did have a channel called Recovery Addict from when I thought that people would love to watch videos of me out metal detecting in parks and on the beaches and stuff. Um, and they didn't. That was a failed channel in every way, but it did have that. It had waited that 24-hour period. It actually started in like 2016, and I had just a handful of subscribers there. So I just used that channel. But there is a deeper story behind Recovery Addict. I chose it for the metal detecting because I was addicted to recovering artifacts from the ground. But personally, I also have a story of an addiction where I was addicted to video gaming, and I don't say that lightly. I literally let it take over my life every waking moment, even the times when I should be asleep. I was playing games. I was diving into this online world in that metal building job. That's where I was working at the time. I didn't like what I was doing, and this was my escape. But my escape was becoming my reality, and it took over. It nearly took everything from me, including my family. And through some help of my wife, and some wake up calls, and some good friends and everything, I was able to put my life back in balance. And so the name Recovery Addict means something special to me. And here on the channel, even though it's a funny name for a court a law tube adjacent channel,
right.
uh, it's a channel where we celebrate everybody who is on the path to sobriety, no matter what their addictions are. So you'll often see in chat somebody saying, "Hey, this is day 7. I stopped smoking 7 days ago," or "This is it's been 14 years since I had my last drink," and that's something that we celebrate whenever it comes up in chat, as we are all addicted in one way or another to something we're trying to break from.
I love that. I really love that, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. That is a tremendous story. And I was talking with someone about gaming as an addiction, and you think to yourself, well, how what in the world would make something like playing a game something so addictive? Well, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry whose entire purpose is to keep people playing, because the more people are playing, the more money they're making, right? They can't make the goal. I'm sure the goal is, viewer experience or player experience, and trying to accomplish missions and everything else. But if you're not staying on the game, then they failed. So when you take billions of dollars and throw it at engineers and other people to figure out a way to hardwire the human brain to stay on the game, it's no wonder that it is a thing that people struggle with.
Yeah, and it has reinforcement. You find an online community that supports you in your gaming, and
Right.
they become your guild, and the guild expects you to be there, and you're supposed to participate, and
Wow.
it sucks you in. And for me, it was gradual, but I dove in head first. And there was a time when I was driving down the freeway as an outside salesman, so I travel for my job. I'm driving down on the freeway. On the passenger seat next to me, I have my laptop open with an air card. When the early modems that let you have the internet wherever you go, with my game running on there, trying to manipulate, engage on that at 75 miles an hour, whatever it was I was doing. And that was part of the wake up call to me, because, you take your eyes off the road for a couple seconds, even a text, 5 seconds later, you look up and the whole surroundings have changed. I was putting my life in danger. I was putting everyone else's life in danger around me for what? For a game.
That's incredible. Yeah. That I I can imagine looking back on that moment now, you're thinking to yourself, how did I ever get there? But when you're in that fog and
Yeah.
it's just all kind of piling up, you just all of a sudden you find yourself in those situations. And that applies to people, whether it's gaming or, like you said, drinking or smoking or whatever else it is.
Yeah.
That's I appreciate and I applaud you and your community for making that a part of your channel, that you support people in that way. Let's talk though about the beginnings of the channel. Was it, once it started being live streaming, has that just been the focus for you? Is this is what you're going to get if you come to Recovery Addict? Is we're going to watch trials, and I'm going to live stream them and talk about them. I guess my long-winded question is, tell us from those first couple of days, has it evolved or have you stuck to a certain kind of mission?
It's evolved, but it hasn't really changed from my initial view. I've always loved the law, and I like that we can live stream and commentate on cases. But I started on day one of my channel. I had equipment to run my channel that most channels don't have. Video switchers, hardware switchers and encoders, and some nice cameras and things like that. And I've always liked to incorporate my love for technology into the channel. So I love to, I see a new court case as a challenge to get the best audio, best video. So we are acquiring cameras, and just got some stuff this last week that will enable me to set up cameras at remote locations and instantly be connected 2 ways. And so we're always trying to push that, because I want the viewer who's watching on Recovery Addict to experience court in a way that I would want to, which is usually without interruptions and with a lot of options to if I have a question, I want to be able to get it answered, or I want to be able to hear well. I want to be able to know what's going on. So we're always trying to push to that next step, and at the same time, we're you've got the natural pushback of the courts, which are very slow to adopt change whatsoever. So cameras in the courtroom is relatively new from how far we've progressed since they were first allowed in. But it's a fun challenge to me, and I've got some great ideas moving forward for what we want to do.
The judicial system, the criminal justice system, moves like absolute molasses. It's so true that there's nothing on the books that prevents them from having cameras in every single courtroom and streaming all of that live, but the judges being against it or attorneys being against it. And it is, first of all, we're seeing it far more prevalently today than we ever have, and I think that's why channels like yours are thriving, and other channels like that. But it's still amazing to me how much pushback you see, because it is one of the things that distinguishes the way we practice the law here in the United States from other countries. Other countries don't even allow it at all.
Yeah.
We have said this system should be transparent. We should open the doors to the public. You can walk into any courtroom, but there's something about, oh, you want to put a camera in here? Now all of a sudden we're afraid of all of that. Do you see that changing? Do you think that we're reaching a tipping point?
I think it is changing. I mean, we've got a couple things. We've got the older generation of judges who might have been resistant to it because change is scary, are moving on. They are retiring. We are getting younger judges who grew up with cameras being normal and being a more in-depth part of our life. So we're seeing that. We are seeing public sort of demanding more and expecting to get that access. So it's putting that pressure, and the public. Eventually, every judge is up for retention vote. so sometimes if there's enough outcry, that will hold sway. But I think it is changing. I think it is improving. I think we all have different parts to play in that role. There is too much of a good thing. It is possible to zoom in too close to Lori Vallow's face. There are some things that we shouldn't be able to hear if it's, privileged conversations. But I think there's a balance that does allow it to be open. I think transparency is crucial to the people in general, just having faith in the system that it works. But I am hopeful that it's moving in the right direction. We'll find that balance that will give us open access as well as preserve the integrity of the different components that need to be sort of protected.
100%. I agree with you. I think it's becoming now the exception, especially in these high profile cases. It's an exception when they don't have cameras allowed to cover it. I think the public is more bothered by that than they used to be. It used to be the exception that they ever would broadcast something, so it was kind of seen as a treat. But now we're so used to it that when they don't, I think that the public response is a little bothered by that more than it ever has been in the past. Um, there's some things about your channel that are very unique that I really like that I wanted to talk about. I mean, one, yourself first and foremost, but the idea that you do have so much going on with the different cameras, and you showed us your studio there, and you've got all of the different audio and everything. And I love that you will show that perspective, your point of view. Tell us what is the intent behind that? Are you just trying to bring us into the room with you, or is it just fun for you to share with others all the gadgets? Is that just simply part of it?
That might be part of it. I've always liked knowing behind the scenes. As a kid, I grew up, listening to a police scanner. And it's one thing to read the news story in the newspaper or hear it on the radio. It's another thing to hear it unfolding live on the airwaves. And I've always liked that behind the scenes. See behind the camera and what's actually happening. How did we get here? How does this happen? And I've loved that. I initially had an idea with the channel, and actually I've set up all the technology that I could allow users to control my studio through
Oh
commands.
boy.
And it's a terrible idea. I mean, it's absolutely it's the worst idea ever. But the technology is there to allow somebody to say, I'd like to see a different camera, or I'd like to adjust this volume up or down, or things like that. And when you in a democratic type environment where everyone gets a vote, it's awful because everyone's going to be switching the channel and adjusting things, and it doesn't work that way. But I hope that in the future, and we're talking far in the future, that we are to the point where we can say, I'd like to have a view of the judge on my screen, and someone else says, but I want to watch the defendant on my screen. And they're able to choose on their end. The technology isn't quite there yet, but we're getting there. It's going to be closer. And I hope to be the first channel that makes it possible.
I think you will. The technology is definitely there. As you were speaking, it reminds me there are different sports broadcasts that are trying to do that.
Mm.
I know that some of the NBA games, they will have, the regular broadcast, but then they'll have like a courtside view that you could watch the game from this kind of much closer view. And it doesn't have I don't think it has the broadcaster speaking over it. It's just a different way to observe and take in that game, which leads me to my question of, is part of this kind of a spectator sport, do you think? I mean, and if it is, Is that troubling? Like, because these are real people's lives, right? This is real drama. Real people have lost lives. Real people are on trial and could go to prison for the rest of their lives. Or do you think it's just a healthy way for us to see how everything is done?
That is a very valid question that I'm not sure if I've plumbed the depths of yet in my own soul. I I to be honest, clearly there is some element of that spectator sport. It's
Yeah.
watching for the crashes and the burns. That's there. Um, but I like to think I have a healthy respect for the law, and I try not to make a mockery of it through doing that. Although we're listening to evidence and testimony about murders week in and week out, so we try to find ways to make it a little lighter and maybe share moments of levity mixed in with the seriousness while still maintaining that level of dignity and respect for the participants who, for them, this isn't just something to watch on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
This determines the rest of their life. So it's a balancing act, and we do try. We've got some of the best mods in the world on our channel that try to help us keep it respectful in chat, and remind people that oftentimes we have family members of victims or defendants, or even some of the courtroom players that are watching on our channel with us, and we find out after the fact. And we always want to do things in a way that wouldn't offend or be offensive in that way.
I I feel the same. I've kind of struggled with the concept of it too, because it is fascinating, and you do, you know, react to things that happen in court, and sometimes it is funny, and sometimes it is dramatic, and it's hard to not lose yourself in the moment of being a spectator of what you're watching. And a part of me thinks, you know what, that's not all that bad. I mean, people become fans of many different things. They've become fans of the Kardashians, or they become fans of some sports team or something. This is people who are interested in these legal dramas that are playing out, and they just happen to be real life. But I think that it is wise, as you pointed out and explained so eloquently, to kind of continue to remember that, hey, somebody is may have lost their life tragically here, and hey, that defendant, we may, you know, we may feel what they did was awful and horrible, but they are going away for the rest of their life, or their family is suffering in some sort of way too, which is part of why I think we're all in this world and fascinated by it, because it is so real. It's not
Yeah.
made up. The drama doesn't reset at the next episode. It is real people's lives.
Yeah, you're right, and in watching it, it's amazing, especially now that the community has grown to be. We might have a couple thousand people watching at a time during a court case. How many people in chat are watching this and seeing the correlation to their own lives or experience they
Yeah.
went through, or somebody they know, and it's really opened the door in being able to talk to them and have them be able to talk to me, and sometimes either call in on the burner phone, or to send a message in chat or text me or something, and share a perspective that I never would have come to on my own, just because my life experiences may have been different.
Yeah.
I have learned so much, and learned to be um, to really stop before I judge and say something, because my perspective from where I stand, everything I see, it looks right, but I don't have the best view, and I've learned that. And a lot of times I have to say, I don't understand what's happening. Help me understand. And it's been incredible to learn from people who have not just people who have gone through tragedies or had to experience some sort of court proceeding in their life or their family's life, but lawyers and judges and retired professionals in various different fields seem to all come together and share this information. I think it helps all of us when we
Yeah.
do that.
You bring me to my next point, is that the other thing about the world that you've chosen with live streaming on YouTube is how interactive it is that you're not just sitting there watching it yourself, and people are joining to view it along with you as if they would a TV show. They're in the chat, and they're telling you what they think, and they're asking you questions, and they're contributing to the conversation. And it's not just you, it's you and a couple hundred, perhaps thousand people all taking part in this observation. How has that been for you? Because you said that you weren't a person that pictured yourself in front of a camera. Well, now you're in front of the camera and interacting with hundreds of people, sometimes thousands. How has that been? Do you enjoy it? Is it stressful? I don't know.
It hasn't been stressful, because it grew around me. And so I've seen, I saw that person their first day they came in, when they first chatted, and I know them, and I know, through, uh, you know, you know, what is it? 10 live streams a week, 4 hours a time, about 8 hours a day. I know, even though can't picture their face, maybe haven't met them in person, I know a lot of their stories. And so it doesn't seem like I'm in front of a couple thousand strangers. It seems like I'm sitting down with a couple thousand friends. And so it's fun that way to watch it grow. When it first started, I like to be able to call everyone out and welcome them as they came in. So and so, thank you. It was, I do what we called a roll call first thing in the morning, where I'd read off everyone's name. You can't do that now, because
That would
it
be your whole
scales.
stream. Yeah.
It would. But the idea, that somebody logged in, and they like being part of here, and what it means to them, like what it meant to me when I was watching streamers that I liked watching, and they'd read my comment on the air. I'm like, wow, it's I. I try not to forget, what it is like on the other side, because I was there very recently, and try to make it, welcoming and special for everyone who participates. And it's a little harder as it scales up, but that's our goal.
And you've also taken that up a notch with welcoming and encouraging people to participate, because you mentioned this, but you provide a phone number that they can even call in live while you're streaming. Tell us where that wacky idea came from, and how has that experience been?
This is something I never told anyone. This is a breaking exclusive. The phone number that I use for my burner phone was the phone number I set up for, uh, a position I was in when I was heavily involved in politics. And which is funny, because my channel is Pickles Not Politics. We don't bring it up, but it's the same phone number that I used for committee meetings when we're, holding hearings and everything else. It was, but that's my burner phone. It's just a VoIP phone number that I do give out. I realized it's one thing for me to be able to say whatever I want to say, but I wasn't getting the feedback, and I couldn't read it enough. And sometimes people had a message that was, just didn't work in chat, or they wanted to share something that maybe wasn't, they weren't comfortable sharing in front of the whole group. Just like, hey, I want you to know I've got experience here, and if you need something. I've had so many people reach out to me through text message or on the phone, through the burner phone, and it's been amazing. I couldn't even count the hundreds of thousands of calls and texts that come in on that, but are
And
it's
and
just.
and you're in the middle of a stream, and that phone rings. You have no idea who's on the other end or what they're going to say, and you just pick it up.
Uh, I initially I would program in every person's YouTube name when the call came in, so I had it linked. So I was basically adding thousands of people to my contact list. My phone
Wow.
has rebelled. It just does not work anymore. I think I've exceeded what phones were meant to have in contact lists. So it forgot everyone's name at one point. So now we are back to I wonder who this is. And if I don't recognize the number on the screen, which we've got some international callers that call often, I recognize them. But it's always just a little bit of roll the dice. And what I say, I'm available if you have a question, or if you have some comments. As long as you can do it respectfully, call the burner phone.
I am going to work up the courage to do that to you one time, and just surprise you in the middle of a stream.
That'd be awesome.
That would be fun. Um, Another thing you do, which I don't see any other channels doing, and I thought was so inventive, is you'll do kind of courtroom hopping. Tell us about that.
Uh, I've always loved, like I said, the small courts. Ride the bike down to the city offices and watch whoever appears in traffic court that day. I've always liked that feel, and with the whole all the lockdowns that happened, with the pandemic, it sort of brought a lot of courts online in a Zoom sort of setting, and a lot of them liked what they got when they went online. It was more efficient. I could work from home. I don't know what the reasons are, but we've got many courts that have sort of stayed online since then. And so if you were to jump on YouTube, and if you know the right search terms to look for, there are tons of courts you can watch online. I think somebody said that, I was looking at a vendor that services courtrooms. They say we've got like 17,200 something courtrooms in the United States. and many of those just have little things happening. And we follow the big trials that make the headline news, or lead the news hour. But there are little trials that are just as intriguing, that are just as fascinating, that happen in front of empty courtrooms. And finding those little gems has been awesome. So when we have a break between big trials, say like there's the trial ended early, the next trial we're going to pick up doesn't start for a week and a half, we like to do some court hopping. We'll jump around for little courtrooms around the country and sort of just listen into what's happening. Just like it's like sitting down in court, having no clue what's going to happen next. It's become a lot of fun.
I'm so glad to hear you say that too, about little trials and kind of these unknown courtrooms, because I feel that sometimes, kind of going to our conversation about this being dangerously close to sometimes venturing into spectator sport type of territory, is that it sometimes seems like the only things that get highlighted are cases involving either celebrities or some sort of so horrific an event that it just kind of captures the headlines. And that makes sense. We only have so much bandwidth, and you want to kind of follow big things that a lot of people are interested in. But I tell people all the time, if you are fascinated by this world, if you are interested in it, go to your local courthouse. Walk into any criminal, you could do civil, but walk into any criminal courtroom. And if they have a trial on, I guarantee you it will in some way be fascinating and intriguing to you, because every single one of them involves that same amount of drama. Every single one of them likely involves some sort of victim, likely involves a defendant who's looking at jail or prison time. I handled dozens and dozens and dozens of trials when I was a DA, to absolutely empty courtrooms. And they were incredible dramas playing out. People who had, lost family members, and dramatic events taking place. And it's just an empty benches behind you. So yeah, don't, I guess this message is less for you and more for everybody else out there watching and listening, is that, walk into any courtroom. So I love that you highlight that with these smaller courtrooms.
We love, one of the things we encourage people to do is to go and watch court, because as we court hop around, or as we follow different cases around the country, you'll get somebody say, "Hey, this is my hometown," or "I remember this story," or I grew up here. I'm just two blocks from the courthouse right now. And I always like to say, first of all, take the opportunity to go to court. If you've never been before, learn the rules, and they're not hard. They're basically just be respectful, dress nicely, and don't cause a disturbance, and that will get you most of the way through courts. But go and participate, and then if you're able to participate in the court that we're watching, call in on the burner phone and tell us what you saw. Tell us what it was like. Tell us how it's different when you're in person and you see the judge walk in as opposed to on the screen. Because it was for me. I covered courts on camera. The Maya civil suit down in Florida was very different when I was down there in person for a hearing, and the people I'd seen for weeks walked in, and I was brushing elbows with them and saying hi and shaking hands. And it's a unique experience, and I think it's one that everyone should take the opportunity to if they can. The next closest thing is to serve on a jury, which I recommend everyone do as well. But it's fun to watch people experience that and share that for the first time. And I get giddy every time somebody calls and is like, "This is my first day in court. I've never been here before." And then they tell me what they view, because I feel like I'm that kid again in court, where I just sat down and the judge and I didn't know who the prosecutor was or who was sitting where. I sort of figured it out on my own. But it's exciting. I still have a love for that.
And you have plans of doing more of that, right? You were telling me earlier that you have plans of perhaps going out and being in some of these courtrooms of trials coming up this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we do. I have equipment. It's called bonded cellular encoder, which is techie, but we've got fancy equipment that allows us to take a camera or a transmitter to courtrooms, and we've done that. We've taken it to Florida. We've taken it to Utah to sit down in the courtroom and connect to the pool feed. We also have the equipment to be the pool feed. So we can be the actual cameras in the courtroom, and gather the mic, the audio, and everything, and run the switcher from the courtroom for anyone else who might want to use it. So we are, branching out in that area. getting more equipment and technology together. Believe it or not, I need more cables. I need more tech. It never ends, but it's exciting. I think I like to bring some cases up that aren't maybe on the national news. So I'm working with some local judges to try to get them on board with cameras in the courtroom where no one's ever requested that before from them, and like to bring some of the trials that I think would be just as interesting to follow, even though it doesn't have the big press you know following that other trials have had.
With my last few minutes that I have you here, I know asking this question already that it's a based upon a bad premise, but I'm curious, what is like a typical week for you? I know it all changes depending on trials and when they're beginning or ending, but do you have kind of a plan when you enter the week of this is what I plan, this is how Monday's going to go as far as streaming, and even if we don't have trial, I'm still going to do this, or how does that all work?
Well, the way it goes is I go live every day, whether or not we have court. I don't edit any of my videos. They're live from start to finish, and that's how they're left up. So in a way, it's daunting and a challenge every time because you have to have some sort of content or plan there. But at the same time, it's very liberating, in that when I'm done, I can focus on the next thing. I don't have to go and fix and post and edit, and it sort of caters to my specialty, which is not editing. I can do it, but I don't like it. So a regular week, I'll have a plan for a court. I've got a calendar of all the court cases I'm interested in that we've either requested access to be in the cameras or whatever. We requested access to their Zoom feed or however it is. I've got a list of court cases going out, usually more than a year. And as they start getting closer, they sort of fill in. And some of the court hopping we do, we'll say, hey, we want to follow this case when it comes up again, and we'll sort of fill that in. But you get up and go live and try to follow that calendar as best you can, which is difficult because the dates are constantly changing. Things are getting pushed out. Someone takes a plea deal at the last minute and there goes the calendar. But really it's just go live and then it's not so much wing it, but be prepared to wing it, for a short time while you're restructuring and taking plan B.
Who's on your team? Because the way when you're describing all of this, I know how much work goes into all of that. I know just keeping track of trials and the calendars of all these different trials in different counties in different states. It's a full-time job. Who is helping you?
I have amazing moderators who help me a ton. And I also early on, like week 1 or 2, I became connected with a Discord page called As the Gavel Drops, and they track everything. They have amazing calendars, millions of trials, it seems like, that will never be on TV. They've got the data on, they've got the court records, they've got the calendars, they've got all the news appearances all sorted through. So I use them. We share some moderators, so they're on the Discord page with my channel, and they'll keep me aware of things that are happening. But I've just got some amazing people who said, hey, I want to be a part of this. And one thing they're good at is helping me track down dates or find the forms to request access for different media pools, and so I would say the moderators are on my team, but as far as this side, it's just me pushing the buttons. And I did a contest like a week or so ago. I found out I have 1,154 buttons in my studio, so it's a lot of buttons to push.
Show us one more time, because it really, this is fantastic, and I love when you're doing a stream from this angle too, because it really does make me feel like I'm in some live television behind the scenes studio. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lot of buttons. It's a lot of fun. I'll tell you that everything I do on the studio, I can control through this one machine, which is a Stream Deck, and I love it. 36 buttons, and it can control everything. But audio on one side, switchers, recorders, a couple computers, another switcher, another computer, cameras, lights. That's pretty much it.
When I strike it big in this crazy YouTube world, I am hiring you and flying you out to techify because I'm embarrassed to show you what I'm operating with here compared to all of that. So I would.
No, I overproduce what I do. This is not necessary. I mean, don't tell my wife, but this is not necessary to have all these parts and pieces, 80 some odd cables to make it work. if someone's interested, and this is what I love, because YouTube is massive, right? It's hard for us to comprehend just how big the audience is on YouTube, and people are saying, why would you mention other channels? Doesn't that take away? No, it doesn't. I think the more people we have out there who have, a viewpoint, some commentary, the ability to analyze and present ideas about a court case, even if it's the same court case I'm doing, I think it makes it better. So
Yeah.
we can. So I love to support other channels, and usually I'll tell them, start with what you have. If you've got a computer and a phone, camera that you can link in as a USB, you're ready to live stream.
Yeah.
And then your first upgrade, I would upgrade the audio first. I think audio is more important than video, and just upgrade and grow as needed. But start with what you have, and you clearly you have enough. Your production value is incredible for your channel. It's
You.
awesome. I'm jealous.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that's it's other people than me that's making that possible, but I appreciate that, and they will appreciate the compliment too. Um, Tell us what's in store for you. Is there new things you want to try with the channel, or is there a trial that you're really looking forward to? Do you have any kind of sneak peek for the future that you can give us on our way out?
Yeah, I have some hardware ideas, some technology ideas that we're working with, some software that's in beta right now that we're working with the manufacturer of to allow me to configure cameras here, and you can plug in with one cord the camera. I can send it out to people. I can send it's $1,000 camera, but it's virtually just a box. I can set it out, and immediately I can control it and send signals back here and have two-way communication. So we're building that, and I want to be able to say for cases like Brian Koberger, where everyone's going to have the same feed, and it's going to be the judge's Zoom view. Have something outside, have a pan tilt Zoom where we can follow people in and out of the courtroom, show you the weather, show you the parking, show you the maze of news media trucks that are out there, and everything like that. Those are things that I'm working on. Hopefully we can pull off, because it's not cheap, but it's something that I think people want to see. They just don't want to,
Yeah.
it's one thing to see Zoom, but it's another thing to get an idea and a real feel for what it's like at, 2 hours before court opens and people are standing in line outside. So that's
That's
the
very
idea.
cool. That's very cool. And you're right. We have the technology. It is available. And I think people absolutely have a desire to watch even whatever kind of little nuance and detail you can give them that's beyond that static feed from inside the courtroom, I think is better.
Yeah. The idea, I was working with a bail bonds company outside the courtroom in Latah County for Brian Koberger. I'm trying to arrange to put a camera in their upstairs office window that I could control remotely. And then when the court case got moved, I'm like, now I need to find a new location
Oh no.
in Boise. But I wanted to be able to just have a camera, no audio, but just be able to zoom in and see people come in and out. And it's all legal. It's sort of like
Yeah.
next level spy stuff, but it's all legal, and keep it on the up and up. But
I love it.
I'm hoping that's where we go next.
I love it. If you do, consider me tuned in and keep your phone ringer on, because I'll be calling while you're
Awesome.
doing that.
Sounds great.
Scott, again, you're fantastic. This was a incredible conversation, even the second time around. So I appreciate you again for being so generous with your time. Before I let you go, though, for people who are new to your audience, obviously they can go to Recovery Addict on YouTube to follow you. Is there other places where people can follow you or learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok or X as well. We also have a group on Facebook, the Recovery Addict page, the channel page. But all the links are on my YouTube About page. So if you can get to YouTube, it'll get you to all the other points as well. But I have a TikTok, I have a Twitter, I have Facebook. I think I have an Instagram. I should probably check that. I don't know if I have an Instagram. I'm not very good at posting there, but yeah, on all the social medias.
Well, whatever socials you got, we will make sure to include in the descriptions on this video. But once again, thank you, my friend. I encourage everyone, go follow Recovery Addict right now. Thank you again. This has been a pleasure.
Josh, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this interview. If there is someone you would like to hear from, a well-known creator, or perhaps someone you feel that gets overlooked, please let us know in the comments. And please check out our playlist of past conversations. We appreciate you all. Please remember to like this episode and subscribe for more content like this. And thank you again for joining us for this episode of Courtroom Confidential Conversations.